So here we are. Welcome back, everyone. Good morning, buenos dias, buongiorno, bonjour, whatever time of the day it is for you. Welcome back to We Mortal Coils. Today we've got a little bit of a smaller, I was going to say crowd, but it's the host. It's just me and Stefan. So we probably have a
Smaller
smaller crowd.
crowd, yeah.
Anyway, so,
Um,
all of the above apply. Today we're going to be
People,
going
we're just
over
here.
some,
We're just
and maybe
here.
not entirely, maybe not all 100% here.
I mean, there's at least
Today
one person on this podcast,
there
Like if
is,
I
there
count as a
is.
half and Brey counts as a half, we're all here.
Yeah.
I mean,
So we're really counting on people in the audience to, bring the thunder for this one. Really account for the majority of the brain cells.
no, this is the part where we make this episode, right? And then it really takes off. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
explodes in popularity. Like doesn't double in popularity. Like, it doubles and doubles again, like a few times. So you know what I mean? I wonder
Yeah.
how
This
magical it
this
would
will
be.
be like,
Or popular ass, medium. Uh, it's just you and callers. You know what I'm saying?
right. Like do none of the work except just respond to whatever people
Yeah,
have to say,
just respond. Oh
which
man.
honestly is a ton of work. But anyways,
Oh yeah, it is.
we're gathered here today. Whenever one or more people are gathered in our name, let
Yeah.
thy let thy topics be covered on the podcast. We're talking about the lesson. I'm working with thin material here. We're we're talking today about the events of last week, which were the events of the 2024 United States presidential election, including some House and Senate races. So basically, the race for America.
Yep. Yep. So like, I have not checked since Trump decided to win. I have not checked how bad is it
Decided to
for
win.
the, yeah, how bad was it for the Senate and the House?
Uh, as far as I am aware at this juncture, everything is gone.
What is
Like
that?
everything, like sweeping total victory. I'm talking Johnny sweep the kitchen. You know, the White House, the the regular House, the Senate, the Supreme Court was already gone. I mean, we are
Yep, where it's
completely
53.
bankrupt.
It's 53. Wasn't it 51 in 2016? 51 senators.
I do not think that we have. I don't want to make any major claims, but I
Well,
think we have
right
lost.
now the Senate is 53 Republican,
Okay, then is there
and
still
the
undecided?
House. So right now it says 214. Um, so the Republicans need four more seats to gain
Mm,
majority in the House. So I mean, it
we're
could
on
it
we're on some
could
thin ice.
it could uh, it could be worse.
Certainly,
The court could be packed.
I feel like I'm just it's just such a like dreary opening to the episode.
Look,
But
people.
I
How many? Oh God, how many Trump appointees are on the court right now?
I think he appointed what's his name? I like beer guy Kavanaugh.
Yeah, yeah.
Seven, do you have your phone near the computer?
I'm looking for
I
the.
only say that because I'm getting that like early 2000s like interference noise.
How
Like the.
strange. What the fuck even?
But no, Brett Kavanaugh and then Amy Coney Barrett. those are the ones I know off the top of my head because of just the pure like outrage over their appointment to the Supreme Court.
Okay, so we have a Bush nominee, a Daddy Bush nominee, a Bush nominee, Obama, Obama, Trump, Trump,
Biden
Trump,
appointed
Biden.
Justice Jackson,
So let's be clear. One, two,
or
three, four, five, six. So six uh, very probable people who just are on the party line. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty neat. I mean,
it's not look.
we
It's not
deserve it.
looking good across the board.
I'm just gonna say it that way. I just how about we deserve it? I mean, it literally is like the calculator principle. You put them in.
Well, it's like George Carlin said. He's like, this is quite literally the best that America has to offer because
Correct. We are
what you
literally
see is
doing our
what you
best.
get.
I mean, like, I'll be going down the road, people, and I'll just see some moron out in front of me, and like, I mean, they're just, you know, I used to get so mad at people going down the road, and now I know they're doing their best. Like, not because of this
Yes.
election or anything. It's not even what I'm talking about. Like, I'll be going down the road and nowadays. I just won't even get mad. I will look
Oh,
at
I
their
yeah.
in the car, and just see somebody just like doing their best. And
So this is like the slow how do you say de-evolution? Is it de-evolution or
mm-hmm.
like the slow de-evolution of the Trump era? Like in 2016, before he got elected, it was like super funny because nobody took it seriously. And
Nobody.
I think people got, you know, sort of bit by that, but it still was funny because we were like, okay, he got elected, so what? Let's see how he fucks it up. And like everything was all just like make a joke out of the stuff that Trump does while he's president. And that lasted pretty much the entire presidency. Things kind of got old after a while, but it was generally like, there's no way this guy wins again. Like, and then of course in 2020, um, with COVID and everything else, and then of course January 6th, it was like at that point, at that crucial like turnaround, things kind of turned into disdain. Like you probably disliked Trump, but at this point you're like, okay, get this fucking dude out of here. Like we're done.
I remember exactly where I was whenever I found out about January 6th. I was
Oh,
walking
same.
into what it wasn't what was the big room at GTM? It was
Was
105,
that
right?
105? Yeah.
So whatever room that wasn't that one, 103, I believe. Um, we were getting together in what I think was 103, and I walk in, and it's just you. I mean, because I was early. Um, as were you, and maybe two other people in the room that were just way too early as well, but not for like official reasons. They're just early, and you had it pulled up on the board. I mean, like I couldn't even believe it. And back then, I was certainly in the mind frame of being like, okay, them calling this a coup is probably outrageous. And I mean, maybe it was. Maybe calling it a coup is outrageous. Whatever. I don't care anything about that. There was still substantial uh, violent action
Right.
against our process here, against our way of life.
Well, it's like they say, inaction is action. And one of the biggest criticisms from that was that it took Trump so long to even do anything worthwhile with regard to what was happening at the Capitol. And then, of
Yeah,
course,
so
there's
you
been
don't you
other
don't get to
things that
you
have
don't get
come
to
out.
claim to see what develops very
Mm-hmm.
often. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like, well, let me sit back and see how this goes, and then I'll have an opinion on it. Like, that's not what you do. And like the highest point of crisis for, especially during that period. But anyways, what to finish my thought from earlier, it went from this sort of joke into a slightly less funny joke, but we're still trying to have a good time with a bad outcome. And then, of course, these events we've just spoken of happened. Trump got out of office, Biden got put in, and we kind of all took maybe a breath of relief for a momentary respite.
I
But Trump
didn't.
didn't go away,
No.
um, and he stuck around long enough to run again, and everybody, eh, like I've said, there's a million reasons not to have voted for the guy. You couldn't have come up with any more compelling reasons, other than like one, and that would have been if he actually had gone on Fifth Avenue and shot somebody. But like he said, he probably would not have lost any voters. There were a million and one reasons not to vote for him, and he won anyway by the most incalculable, biggest upset in like contemporary. I can't even.
I mean, like I talk with I talk with friends and people who are generally interested, and I mean, like I cannot communicate and I cannot undersell how poorly the Democratic Party has
Oh,
performed. I mean, like this is truly mind-boggling. I mean, like it took putting up Clinton, you know, to for Trump to win. I mean, like, and when I say that, like, I feel like she was, in that time frame, it was just kind of like, why her? You know what I mean? Like, why
historically
not any other
unpopular candidate.
qualified woman? You know?
Mm.
I
Well,
mean,
and I think that's what they stab themselves in the back. So this is a really good point to actually properly dive into the discussion uh, tonight. Is where did things go wrong with the Democratic Party? I will be the first person to admit that back in 2016, I was familiar with both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, and I liked
right.
both of them. I was far more liberal in 2016 than I am now. I am like completely radicalized now. Like I have shoved very far off to the left, especially in the recent months. I've been reading a lot of different material, getting a fresh perspective on things, and as with any sort of, I guess, philosophical framework, in this case politics, the more you read, the more you start to see like the webs that really connect everything, um, in the
Or
same
so
way that
or
I
so you
did.
hope.
Right. Yeah. Um, it gives you a better perspective on the landscape, knowing so much more about how we've gotten here and how everything functions right now is basically what I'm trying to say. Um, but as it stands right now, like I think the going consensus is like liberalism has died across the world too. It's not just here in the United States. One of the books that I finished reading a couple of months ago was called The New Authoritarians, and it documents sort of the rise of these far right, uh, populist, and often fascist groups across the world, here and in Europe and other parts. And it's really frightening how this has come to be. But the key thing that I think is important there, before I shake my computer off of the desk, is that the key thing that's important is that because it's happening all around the world, you can't really single out something in the United States or something in Europe that is unique to that place. It's like there's got to be something that unifies all of these places or let me put it this way, it's very likely that there is some unifying force that is shared by all of these countries that is contributing to the progress
It's
of
so
these.
it's certainly a cultural shift in what you might call the West, or whatever,
Right.
and like, whatever you want to call that, the
It's,
Western world.
mhm.
And I mean, you know, a very large part of me wants to say that it's some kind of response to um very 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 modern problems. I don't know. Uh,
I, and I think that's part of it. I would say that the foundation upon which neoliberalism was built is starting to fall apart. And one of the easiest pieces of data to point to is the stagnation of wages, in my opinion. In the last 50 years, we've made great innovations in technology. Uh, Production has skyrocketed. We've had ups and downs with different sort of pandemic level events or economic collapses, but we've recovered and continue to push on for the most part. However, just like regular wages have not kept up with inflation as
no.
well as production levels. We produce more than ever before, but people are still working more hours and making less to show for it. And yet the rich people are still getting even richer while the poorer people continue to get poorer and the middle class continues to disappear. And I think people look for an answer in that. And after so long of Democrats, neoliberal Democrats getting in office and doing some things, but never really appealing to, or I'll put it this way, not appealing enough or not doing enough that a working class person can see in their everyday life. There's so many. It's impossible for me to talk about all the factors. There's so many things that contributed to what happened last week, but one of the primary ones I think is that people are fed up with establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans. Let's make
how
that
how
clear.
could how could you not be? How could you
Roll,
not be
you're damn right.
upset with the establishment? Like, you know, um, I've never been a fan of Bernie Sanders. I've never been a fan of any of these people. I think that, you know. So, like, I've been talking with my friends about this, right? Who know my situation very very well, more than Brey here, more than, of course, the viewer or whatever, the listener. But like, at the end of the day, in 2015, in 2016, I was in a death grip of misinformation, just completely, like, bad faith arguments, and um, still, like, unknown to me, still in the death grip of the cult that I have escaped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, like, I remember being in that headspace, right? And, you know, the funny thing is that during, not that time, not 2016 time, but like in that same 5 year period, not even five, just two or three, really, like, maybe a year before and a year after. I
Mm-hmm.
was I was writing what would become uh, this story that now I've worked on for, more than 10 years now, and so on. And I've made a lot of good progress with it. Blah 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 blah. But I was talking with my friend about this, and it was like, for real, the escapism that I was having with this story was my psyche, like, screaming for relief, and
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't get that relief until last year, until maybe a couple of years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now that I'm on the other side of all this personal turmoil and things, I look at a candidate like Trump, and I completely understand why people vote for him. You know, what I'm trying to say is that the level, having seen to a very deep level both sides of this kind of idea or whatever, they latch on to the strangest, fewest things said. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and they're they're desperate to make a high chaos world seem simple, and it's not.
Oh,
You
sure.
know, that's honestly the way I think about it. And what I started off talking about, of course, was not being okay, right? So it's just like a band-aid, you know. Um, Electing the right candidate is just like a band-aid, and we need we need like some very serious change, and it will come soon in just a couple of ways. Either we will really double down on this anti-human, you know,
Mm-hmm.
nonsense, and that's more likely. If human history shows us anything, that's more likely. Um, you know, and then as a response to that inhuman, babble, there will have to be a new change that will be good and better. Um, and I hate that. You know, I can imagine that a great many listeners to this would ask, "Why in the fuck was I born right now?" Like, it's a very serious question. You didn't consent to any of this. You know.
Right. You know,
Um, yeah.
I mean, I like the way that you framed it, just because it's literally the case that we have before us is especially for the Democratic Party, which you were just talking about, is how are they going to shift from this? I mean, this is a historic defeat for the Democratic Party. They lost the popular vote. If
Yeah.
everything is if we
Yeah.
assume that everything in the election was
That
completely
that
legitimate.
that
Um,
that blows my mind. I mean, the hard facts that he didn't win the popular vote in 2016,
right.
and I was so ready to vote for Harris. I mean, like I was jumping up and down voting for Harris, and there's so many people on this planet that would say, well, that's because Steph has been taken by the woke mind virus. I mean, like, and I'm quoting more than one person there.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
to see that on Muskrat's like Twitter the other day, that is some shit that my cult grandfather has literally said word for word. I mean,
Man.
like, actually word for word. And to see it said on the world platform is like, I want to die. I do not want to live anymore. I mean,
It really makes you wonder, like, how have we gotten to a point like this? And honestly, there's a lot of things that I think I
it's because
subconsciously.
these people believe they can win this rat race, and they can't. Uh, I'm comfortably an adult enough now to know that I shall never be the winner of the cheese, of the big cheese. It's not going to happen.
Well, that's this is part of like what I have a bunch of notes and I'm trying not to like speak on something twice, but perhaps some of them warrant such a thing. But like part of what I have here is this idea that first, well, let me back up. Let me back up
Yeah,
because what I was just about to say was it was like I subconsciously veiled many things about this election that could only be, you know, shown in full light by the Harris campaign losing, by a
right.
historic defeat, by Republicans controlling every single piece of, the government legislature.
Yeah, and just
Uh,
just real quick, like, I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh God, I'm the master stoic and this, that, and the other, and I know
yeah,
things. That's none of that's true. Like no, nothing could be farther from the truth. Um, what I am trying to say is that I did keep a level head about Harris's campaign, and I was advocating so hard for her. And you heard me the other day,
Mm.
last week, before this happened. I was like, I just have a feeling he's going to win. And I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't me just saying this after the fact. I was thinking in that moment, like, I don't have like a depression about him winning. I have I have a feeling. I have a reasonable expectation that he will win. Like, you know
Sure.
what I mean? It's creepy, and I don't like having been right at
Oh
all.
no. There was always a sense of doubt. I think, especially after 2016, you're like, well, he's definitely got a chance. But I thought again, I put way too much hope and what's the word I'm looking for? I guess I depended on the average person way too much that they would look at the monumental amount of reasons to not vote for Donald Trump and go, yeah, there's no way I'm voting for this person. And I think that shows me how much I am out of line than many other people that I share this country with. Um, that, the ruling class of people could so easily take the working class, average voter and throw a sheet over their eyes to everything, every reason not to vote for this guy, and convince them that the easiest way for them to attain a better life is by, selling out their fellow man. Because that's what a lot of conservative politics comes down to is kicking somebody else in the shin so that you can get ahead. Whether it's in this election, women were on the ballot, Hispanic people were on the ballot, uh, people of color on the ballot, LGBTQ community on the ballot, and like name any marginalized group other than rich people. You know, the the, the only minority that is destroying the country is the ruling class, the billionaire class, the rich class, and which speaking on that never really kind of put two and two together until like, or I suppose, let me put it this way. I'm very anxious to see what the Democratic Party's response is going to be. I
I mean,
sympathize.
it's not going to be the end of the Democratic Party,
Well, of
but
course not.
it's going to be the slow death.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
This is what I
it's
when
bad.
I say I sympathize with people who are like, we need to. I don't sympathize with the drain the swamp people because that was just stupid. What I sympathize with is the people who are like, I don't like either party because what they're really trying to do is criticize the establishment. They don't like the establishment Democrats or Republicans, and I would agree with them. The
How could you
Republican
not?
Party,
That's what I said earlier. How could
yeah,
you not?
the Republican Party is no longer really the establishment Republicans. Even the more moderate Republicans have ceded something at some point to Trump, or if they did one time support him, now they don't anymore. But it's like it's too late for that. Uh, and then
Yeah,
of
I mean,
course
you
this,
you got on the bandwagon and then got sad when it didn't, happen the way you wanted to. Well, you're the one who gave him the authority. I mean,
right. The Harris campaign raised like $1 billion and still lost. Like they have no anything to stand upon, and
they have fumbled the bag hard.
I got a text, like one of those campaign texts or whatever,
Yeah.
fundraising texts after the election was over, like maybe the day after or something. And it was like, hi, it's Nancy Pelosi. We need money now to, you know, actually defeat Donald Trump this time for real. And I was like the neurons in my brain, like all fired at once, just like, fuck you. Like what? It just went to sort of lift the veil and be like, these people are really no different. Like, what?
Yep.
What does Nancy Pelosi care about my well-being? What does
None.
Chuck Schumer care about my well-being? What do any of these establishment Democrats? How are they really any different than the establishment Republicans? And I think for a long time I have felt that way,
Yep.
but I've never really had an opportunity to express that and just pure frustration until, of course, after this election. And that may make me seem really naive. Like I said earlier, I supported Hillary Clinton. I liked Bernie. I liked his ideas and things. At the time, I didn't think he was probably capable of defeating Donald Trump. But now that I've seen all of the information that I've seen now, I'm like, they definitely should have ran with him
Yeah,
as
if
opposed to Hillary Clinton.
I'm gonna be honest with you, like, you know, I would have voted for Bernie. I mean, like, just so easily,
So many
over
people
Trump.
would have done that. Even conservative people would have done that. And it's because of Bernie played both sides of the game. He had
Yep. He played the
policy.
anti-establishment game.
Exactly. He had a narrative. He had populist rhetoric that was, yo, everybody who is working class, we are getting fucked over by the people with all the money who own everything and basically control both or both uh, parties because they just pay a bunch of money to get whatever they want out of these people. Like, I'm not taking any campaign or, big donor money. I just want grassroots money. And I'm going to fight for you. I want to get, universal health care. I want everybody to be able to go get an education. It's like, it's hard to look at his policy platform and go, yeah, I disagree with that.
Yep.
And that I think is no, like I said, I was I don't know, it feels weird to say I was radicalized, but like I have become much further left than I was in 2016 progressively, but especially over the last like 6 months or so, or I'd say more like a year, but especially recently as everything has come down to the wire. And I it makes me
I mean, but like,
embarrassed.
it's also the case, right? That I really think Harris could have won if she had more than a 3 month notice. I mean,
Again,
the party
terrible
has fumbled
takes.
it hard. I mean, like, seriously
Oh
took the
yeah.
bag and said, "I just don't know what to do with it." I mean,
The,
and just
the,
dropped it.
the fact that they would even have considered Biden running for reelection with
Why?
so apparently
Why?
yes, why in all caps with a million exclamation points. Apparently there was data before that was not available to the general public. There's like internal polling data about Biden that first and foremost showed exactly how unpopular he was at the time. But electorally speaking, like massive blowout, like 400 electoral votes for Trump uh, in like early Biden polling data, and they still decided, you know what, we're gonna run him anyway,
Yeah, I
and then
mean,
he's gonna
like,
perform
literally, we're
like
talking
shit.
about the people who run the country going, that gambler fallacy idea, that's looking cool. That shit's
Yeah,
neat. I mean, like, I, I just don't get it. Like, I mean, just otherwise educated people. And it's like I said, I mean, that they truly had the bag.
mm-hmm.
I mean, you know what I mean?
They really, I mean, honestly, incredibly fumbled it, and not to mention that once they had somebody who actually had a chance at sort of tying in a little bit of that rhetoric that I'm speaking about, Tim Walz became the VP candidate.
Yep.
And this dude actually
I
had,
love
and
Walls.
I loved him. I think he was great, but they muzzled him. As soon as they went to the DNC and became the actual candidate, all of these, all the DNC people had to get their fingers in on the Harris campaign and completely fuck everything up. Not saying it was perfect to begin with, but they had to go in there and they had to inflict like 101% pure neoliberalism in there and just really derail the campaign. And of course, that's where they stopped doing all sorts of things. One of the most damning things that Harris said on a TV appearance was that she would basically she can't think of anything she would have done differently in the Biden administration. And I'm like, there's millions and millions of voters out there who are wanting a change, and you basically told them that if you're elected, nothing is fundamentally going to change.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, we all really need this change, and you're talking about it, and then well, we wouldn't have changed anything in the Biden administration. It's
Right.
like, just please, please, I'm begging you. Like, we all saw how bad I mean, was it the Afghanistan pullout was?
Oh yeah, where
I
they
mean,
they
like, that was
withdrew.
embarrassing. Like, I'm not trying to
Well, this
give
this is
Trump
the
any ammunition here. Like, I'm not trying to, you know, talk his talking points. That was beyond the pale. You know what I mean? Like how badly that was dealt with, the kind of equipment we left over there, and so on. I
uh,
mean,
it's really just hard to fathom how badly the entire process was screwed up. But like I said, I think it's really going to come down to, it feels like an insurmountable hill that has to be, trekked to get to a point where it's no longer common people choosing between two people who are just going to do either absolutely no progress or irreparable damage to the fabric of the country. These people who are like, we've got to drain the swamp, we've got to get rid of the deep state. It's like there is no deep state. They are literally right in front of you. These are the people that you see every day on the television saying, vote for me, I'm going to do this. This is those people. These are people with lots of money, or people in a position to receive lots of money to do whatever other people tell them to do, because capital is fueling the electoral
I was about to
process.
say, I understand what they mean by deep state. I always
Right,
have. They're talking about the ultra establishment,
right,
the people who, I mean, the bootlickers of these lobby groups. You know what I mean? And so on. The people who do what they're told. The congressmen that are bought and paid for. Uh, you know, it's just that, as you said earlier, the wool is so completely over their eyes that they think that maybe one day they can be the ones to buy the lobby, to buy the candidate.
right.
It's like, that's not going to happen, and
Yeah.
obviously that's not what they're thinking about. I'm trying to say that they think that they can climb the ladder that high,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, no, you may not. It is a very, very small club, and you are not invited.
Mm-hmm. But
You know what I mean?
that's the sell. That's the sell, especially from a right wing and more conservative point of view. That's why in an earlier discussion that we were having, I think on the podcast, I was like, this might have been the cultural problems episode. I had mentioned that the like fuck everybody else, I'm going to get mine attitude. Basically, Wolf of Wall Street, the movie, the entire added that attitude, the fact that people look at that and go, I can do that, instead of this is horrible, nobody should ever live like this, is a serious problem, because people believe that this is something to aspire to. Like, oh, one day I'll be the
No,
person
no,
getting
no,
all
no.
the
No, we know exactly the kind of people who have voted for this kind of behavior. Like, and I'm so willing to call them out. Like, these ultra Christian, people who have no idea what their holy book has said. None.
mm,
Uh, you know,
oh god,
you
don't even.
you cannot convince me that they are not misinformed. You can't convince me that they have good information whenever they will literally take the holy book and say, uh, you know, look at all this wonderful, you know, uh, storytelling, based in poverty, based in suffering, based in the message that poverty is a good thing, uh, and then say, oh well,
Right.
we can and will elect someone who is looking out exclusively for his billionaire friends. I mean, like, the cognitive, like, dissonance and double think is
Mhm.
beyond the pale.
You're absolutely right. That's one of the frustrating things to me, knowing that so many voters are of a religious persuasion and that they lean to the right. And again, the conservative party is literally just people shilling for billionaires. Like, speaking of Bernie Sanders, he said everything anybody needs to know. There was a video of him, I think it's 2003. He's speaking to a
In a
classroom of
classroom,
students. Yeah,
that video has gained very nice notoriety here lately. I've watched that whole thing. I could not
like
believe what I was hearing. I
it's
was
good.
like,
Could have said
for someone
yesterday.
to nail it so effectively on the head. Like, and I'm not talking about whenever people are like, well, Alex Jones nailed it on the head. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is eerie. This isn't just shit he's saying. This is what
Mhm.
happened. I mean, like, it is
Right,
what happened. He
and it is
watched it happen. Since he's made that video, he's watched it happen.
yes. Which, as an aside, I can't even fathom what somebody like Bernie Sanders feels at this moment. Like to just watch
to have his
everything be slaved
entire
away.
professional career mean
Yes.
nothing.
Um,
I can identify with that. My entire
it's.
professional career up to this point means nothing.
I think he
Nothing.
serves as a really good reference point to like where things went wrong as far as like the fork in the road is because without him, perhaps there would have been someone else. But hindsight's 2020 or whatever I'm trying to say right here. It's like he's here. He does serve. He does provide value to us in that aspect, even if we could never get him elected or even get him, a nomination as a primary. But the really important thing about all of that was like it just goes to show you the importance of the rhetoric, the populist rhetoric, and why the Democratic Party doesn't have that, somebody might ask, because they're beholden to the Capitol. They have their super rich donors that they cannot cross by telling the masses to, unionize against the workplace or, look at these people in the us versus them aspect. Like your enemy is the ruling class, your enemy is the billionaire class. Why can't you say that? Because that's you. You are part of the problem.
You're
Uh,
part of the establishment.
yes,
So look,
the people have been bamboozled.
I want to share a story of something that happened to me today. Today, we are what, 6 days away from this election. We are 6 days out of this election, is what I mean, right?
I believe so. About yeah,
Um, but point is that last week at this time, I was looking at election results, going, it looks pretty rough. You know what I mean? And uh, being right, uh, you know, in the process of being right. So less than a week later, I'm sat there today on a Monday. I've had an otherwise good day. I mean, nothing's wrong, so to speak. Nothing's like, completely out of place, just completely average
yeah.
days. Nothing going on. And I had a student in my room during like lunchtime or whatever. And you have to understand, for the listener out there, that there are only two students ever in there. And thankfully, they both show up. I'd rather not be in the room with just one of them. Um, but my point is that they both come in here in my room, and they do this like arena of ideas type of thing all the time. And I'm pretty hands off, unless they want me to weigh in on something. And the boundaries are always extremely clear. Like, if they ask me about, I tell them, you can ask me anything. I will. I'm the adult in the situation here. I get to
Mhm.
choose whether I answered or not. And they ask me something that like toes the line of being political, and I say nope. All I can give you is the data. All
Mhm.
I can tell you is, uh, the data that I know. You know, I can't speak to the interpretation on that data whatsoever. You know, and I'm just trying to get this picture clear in your head, Bray, and
Right.
whoever else's head. Uh, Completely, totally non-toxic environment. They can talk about whatever and so on. So this girl student that's in the room, and I only say girl because it matters to the story. She decides to lay on me and another student um, this opinion. She goes, I don't think that women should hold office. And I said, excuse me. And she goes, I mean, I just don't. I don't think that women, like, long story short, she's saying that women do not have what it takes to be in office. Like, speaking with the specific language that they lack some immutable characteristic
Right.
that makes them okay for office. And she then followed it up with, and I don't even really see why we should be able to vote. And these opinions are coming from nowhere. I mean, like, this is not normal for her to say. This is, I mean, and I'm not just talking about a girl saying this. I'm talking about this is not normal for this student to have said.
Hmm.
And we're 6 days out of this election. It's not a coincidence. It's just not. And she's telling me this, and I mean, like, it would be one thing for me to say I couldn't help it. It would be one thing for me to say, I just blurted something out. I most certainly did not. I meant every word, and I planned almost as though it were planned. I said, "You don't get to have that opinion," and she was like, "Well, everybody has their opinion." I say, "No, they don't.
Yeah.
You are misinformed. Uh, you lack information. That is the only reason you could say that." And she goes, "Well, I mean," she reiterated that people have their opinion. I was like, "No, you don't. You are hilariously misinformed. And whoever's telling you this information is not your friend."
You are maliciously misinformed.
Exactly. Like, I'm talking to a young woman, and she really, truly believes this stuff. There was no lie in her eyes. There was no hyperbolic, like, there's nothing going on. She was being dead truthful, blushing about her opinion whenever she discovered it was not acceptable to me. Because my opinion matters to her, you know? And like I said, no, as a matter of fact, you don't get to have that opinion. You can't have that opinion. You are misinformed. End of story.
I
And like I said, that was not an emotional outburst. That was me telling a female student what she needed to hear.
it's nothing particularly new to me. I've seen some of these interviews on the street with people who are Trump supporters, and women saying that they don't think a woman could be president or that they shouldn't be able to hold office or things like that, and is ridiculous because it means there has been such a substantial source or power
A
somewhere
campaign,
in,
a
yes,
campaign of
somewhere,
evil.
exactly, in the right-wing sphere that has convinced women that they are incapable of voting, of holding office. It's a slippery slope to me, because if you don't think that, number one, a woman can hold any sort of executive position, if well, first of all, if you're saying a woman can't even be president, then that just opens up, in my mind, he's like, well, why should a woman have any executive position? Why should a woman be in
No,
charge
no,
of anything?
exactly. Like, if a woman can't be president, then what office can she hold? But
Right.
Bray, that's not what she said. It happened today. She said office. She wasn't
Mm-hmm.
talking about. I mean, I've met these kind of people before, but not in such a visceral way. in such a
Oh,
long time.
it's completely different when you meet someone face to face with these sort of views. And then on top of that, you don't even have the agency or the capability of voting. Like, that's essentially saying that you are not capable of making your own decisions, which is asinine, absurd, completely insane.
I mean, it's just nuts.
That might be. There we go. Sorry, I lost you there for a second, but
Yeah, you're good. All
we're
I said
good.
was it's just nuts. It
It
is
is nuts.
that
You know,
nuts.
and like, hang on, I'm trying to stay with you here
You're good.
with the video. I'll say this. You know, as I was saying earlier, how the Conservative Party really is just a vehicle for capital in the sense that they exist to protect the interests of the capital class, the billionaire class. The bourgeoisie and the Democratic Party is essentially the same thing, except they come with, you know, mild perks for marginalized communities. That's basically what all of this comes down to. But the fact that capital itself has torn people down so much, like the state of our affairs so much has been deteriorated that, like, common people will do anything to get a crumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, a crumb of power, a crumb of money, like any little thing they can get off of there, they'll do anything. They'll sell the country out to a fascist in order to what? Get marginally lower gas prices, see a few more dollars on their paycheck. You know,
But I mean
who
that's the thing. We won't. I mean, if you're out there and you believe that the economy is going to get better, I hope you're right.
you
And
know
if you
on
are, I'm here for it. I will take advantage of anything I can get. That's all I'm going to
sure,
say is that I hope you're right.
right. You know, one of the weirdest, almost dystopian charts or graphs that you can look at from this election, I think, is it's the county, like the by county shift. So, like, how much each individual American county shifted in a particular direction.
Right.
I don't think it's overall like from a center. I think it's from where it was previously.
Sure.
Um, it the details are on the website, and I'm not sure which website it is, but you can find it. Almost the entire country shifted to the right. Like, it is absolutely unbelievable. Like, when you look at this thing, how much things shifted to the right all over. Like, the blue is almost non-existent. And it baffles my mind, like, how, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, I'm just stating what the facts are. It boggles my mind how rural, uneducated voters can have absolutely nothing in common with a man like Donald Trump or even J.D. Vance. Donald Trump, a man who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, sitting on a gold-plated toilet in a high-rise apartment in Manhattan, doing, you know, what he does. How they can identify themselves with that instead of alongside the millions and millions of other people who are in just as destitute of a position as they are, whether they be black, white, immigrating, especially looking for a better life. Are you not looking for a better life as a rural, uneducated voter? Again, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I mean, you probably live in a county that has a very small population with very little access to public amenities. You probably do some form of self-sufficiency to keep yourself afloat. Uh,
Questionable access to clean drinking water.
sure.
Let's just throw that out there.
Do you not wake up every day and think my life could be better, like in a lot of different ways? I don't live that way, and I still think that way. I wish I had access to universal health care. I wish that it didn't cost me over $100,000 to get the education that I have to put me in the, you know, the position that I am now. I wish that I could afford to buy a house. My life could be improved in a lot of different ways. And yet, when I look at the party structure, or at least the political spectrum, I align myself to the left because that's the closest I can get to people who actually care about me as a working class individual and as really more as a human being. And yet,
I was gonna say,
somehow
like,
they're
we shouldn't confuse ourselves with such selfish language as like care about me. It's just care about other people. You know what I mean?
right.
Just have a care about the wealth, the literally on the document, the general welfare. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And yet, these people are convinced by Donald Trump. They worship a man who has absolutely nothing in common with them, and basically beg him for a crumb of anything.
I
There's
wish that you know somehow, right? Um, like for Christmas even, okay, that all the people who voted for Trump could meet him personally. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Like just obviously this could never possibly happen, but like
Right,
just get to spend an hour with the person, you know,
right,
and begin to understand on some level that they are confronted with a total bullshitter, an habitual liar. I mean,
mm-hmm.
and so on. You get what I'm saying? I
Right.
mean, people like Trump are really bad at hiding who they are. I mean, I've been surrounded by people like him my entire life. These totally inauthentic people.
Oh, sure.
Uh, you know, they can't handle um, you know an hour's like meeting without showing like the signs, the signs of
Yeah,
being the kind of people that they are.
I'm glad you said that because it kind of gave me an idea. Imagine in your mind, on one hand, Donald Trump, and on the other, the ideal leftist candidate, whether that's Bernie Sanders or someone else. Imagine if you could be a fly on the wall in these people's, like, the interior of their lives, like away from the cameras, away from the people that, communicate to the masses or whatever.
I have a
Like,
good one. I have a good one to sneak in there real quick. On the one hand, we have Donald J. Trump, and on the other hand, we have Jean Luc Picard. You know what I mean? But like
sure,
I would,
that's a good example.
he would so have my vote. Like I mean, in a heartbeat. And I realize he's a fictional character, okay, but that makes it all the better. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
it's a like you said, it's an ideal left candidate, and that only exists in fiction.
Right.
Did you see what I mean? Like it only
No,
exists
that's
in
a good one.
fiction
But my point is, I want you to imagine how much each person spends
in
doing
front of the
things
mirror.
and sharing thoughts that are in common with you. How many times a day do you think Donald Trump spends thinking about how to improve the lives of working class everyday people? Probably not very much. How many times a day do you think Donald Trump thinks about where he's going to get his next meal, or how he's going to pay his rent, or if he doesn't get enough money by such and such date, he's going to be behind on XYZ, or, you know, the list goes on. You get the idea of what I'm saying.
I
Whereas,
do.
for example,
And a
Picard,
little irony, a little fictional irony here is that Jean-Luc Picard was also born with a silver spoon up his ass. You know what I mean? But he was taught how
right?
to be a human.
Do you think Donald Trump was ever taught how to be a human?
No, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Or do you think, in opposition, he was simply taught how to be a businessman and how to get that money that you got inherited and how to keep making more of it at anybody's expense
I
except
mean,
your
like at
own?
any and all costs. You know,
Right.
destroy like every facet of life except for the green
Mm-hmm.
god, money.
Yeah. Anyways, to start pushing this to a place where we can wrap up, because this really is just a straight stream of consciousness, like raw,
Yeah,
feelings about
that's
the
what
election.
that is what we
Perhaps,
came here to do, people. That is what we
yeah,
promised. That's
it's on
what
the
you
agenda.
got.
This is just pure, yeah. Um,
We're gonna have
I
three
wanna,
people who watch this: me, Brey, and Trevor, and that's
yeah.
okay. I mean,
There's two
yeah.
things I do want to do before we dip out, and that should probably put us around the normal allotment for the episode that we usually go for. And the one thing is, I want to make sure, despite all the things we've said here, that we do not forgive stupidity. We do not forgive idiocy. And my point on this is that when I call somebody an idiot, I don't mean that their overall character is necessarily that of an idiot. What I mean is that you have been an idiot in regards to something. Like, if you voted for Donald Trump, I think you are an idiot, but with respect to making a decision about this election, I think you were presented with two choices and you chose the far worse of the two options. Even as somebody who only voted for Kamala Harris ideologically to oppose Donald Trump. Like I said before, I don't think there's been an adequate response to the Trump candidacy, and I think this election demonstrated just that. I think you are an idiot in regards to that. If you are terrible at comedy and you just cannot tell a joke to save your life, you are an idiot in regard to comedy. It goes for anything. I don't typically call people an idiot and mean that their entire character is that of an idiot. So let's address stupidity with regard to what happened. I think Trump got 45%, something like, of the Hispanic vote in the face of all of the talk about deportation, the mass exodus of
I
people.
mean, like I brought up this earlier, like on my phone.
And the guy he's putting in charge of this process has said on an interview, if I'm not mistaken, that if they run, basically paraphrasing here, that if they run into issues deporting people who have family members that are here that cause problems, well, they'll just get deported too. Like
So
I've heard too
I,
many anecdotes from people saying, I'm not worried about getting deported because I'm not a criminal. Like, buddy, I hate to be the one to bring it to you, but this is not how this stuff typically goes.
I mean, like you know, like I said, on my phone, I had it brought up earlier. I just looked up his platform. I wanted to talk more about like what he's going to do day one, and
Error
we
page
we
not
didn't we
found.
yeah whatever you know, and he has on this platform the biggest deportation thing ever in American history.
Ever in world history, this would be the
And
largest mass, like, expulsion of a people in world history.
well, I mean, do we count the Holocaust or what?
Well,
I
what
mean,
I was
they just weren't expelled anywhere. Suppose they went nowhere.
sure,
Seriously.
I it the the man had just no plan. He has concepts of a plans. He's on national television espoused conspiracy theories. He was impeached twice. He has 30 something felony charges. He was found liable of sexual assault. Had classified documents in his fucking bathroom at Mar-a-Lago. The hush money payments to a porn star. It goes on and on. He's failed countless businesses even before he became president. January 6th should speak for itself. And then the absolutely atrocious response to COVID, a Democrat hoax. Like I said, there could
you know
not be
that
more
Mr.
reasons.
Incredible meme, like you started up here where I was like happy Mr. Incredible, and then like it
Yes.
slowly went down,
It
and
gets
then
darker
you
and
dropped January 6th, and it was the troll face going bang bang.
yeah.
I mean,
You know, almost
oh
every
god.
person who was close to him on his staff said, "Do not vote for this guy." Top economists
I've
said this
seen
dude
that
will
so
destroy the
much.
economy.
I,
None
I've
of that
seen
mattered.
I've seen that exact picture you're talking about, where it shows like his original like cabinet and like staff and shit,
Yeah, and
and
they're
it's like
all like extra.
one person is still on the Trump
Mm-hmm.
train. Like please vote for him, Trump
Yep.
train. The others are like, don't do this. Please don't
Yep.
do this. Didn't Mike Pence come out against him? I can't
Mike Pence
remember.
does not support him because he tried to get Mike Pence to disenfranchise the American public. Not to
Who
mention all the people who were ready to hang Mike Pence at the January 6th thing.
uh,
Like, that should tell you all that you need to know. The fact that his own vice president does not,
it wants to
is not
distance
on the
himself
right.
away from
Like, when was the
Trump.
last time you heard something from Mike Pence? Dude said, fuck
Yeah.
this shit, I'm out. Like, I almost died.
Look, what I mean, I don't
Shit,
know.
shift it this way, and then we'll close. Are there any pros? Are there any pros? Is there any silver lining to this election? I think there
Okay,
might be
okay.
some.
One, one. I want to be as fair-minded as possible. Okay, I wanna, I don't want it ever said that we're just completely emotional and have no level head and whatever. The other day I watched a horrifying spectacle. I mean, like it could have been Palpatine talking. Like it could have been Palpatine going, "We need to consolidate executive power." I mean, and fucking Jar Jar Binks is the millions of internet trolls that have listened to Andrew Tate for the last 5 years. Going, I think we do need to do this. I mean, but my point is that he sat there talking about like there was this long-winded speech about like what they were going to do, start doing day one, whatever. And
Oh yes.
it was like consolidating power, like what was was thinly veiled. Like there were so many ways that he was
Right.
talking about
It's right there in the
consolidating
Project
power.
2025 stuff that we've already
And
talked
then
about.
like it was also shifting federal offices to other states, and I said, so you mean Republican strongholds? That's what you meant to say,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so anyway, at the very end of that talk, he talks about term limits for term limits
Mm-hmm.
for legislatures, and I was like, okay, a win is a win. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like oh my goodness, and but
But
then of
perhaps it's
course
term limits for thee and not for me.
oh no, it gets worse than that. Like here very soon, Grand Moff Tarkin is going to come through and he's going to say the Senate has been dissolved. I mean,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
going to be that bad.
Well, there was that one thing where I can't speak on it, but I did read it. I didn't internalize it, but there was something about he put out a message about we're going to make some change in the Senate because it's taking too long for shit to get done in the Senate. So we're changing something to expedite this. I'm like, well,
Are we going to change the filibuster rules again?
oh,
Like,
they're gonna nuke the filibuster as soon as they have the
well,
opportunity.
but don't you remember that in 2018 the nuclear option or whatever really started hurting like the Trump like side of things. I think anyway. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
entirely sure, but like anyhow, you know, okay, they change up things in the Senate. Nothing changes for me and you. They nothing. You know, like I'm talking about just with that thing in and of itself.
Sure, but people don't realize that. People don't read policy. The average person. This is like the equivalent of the evil villain telling you their entire plan, and then like everybody going, "Okay, cool, sounds good." This is like Lord Farquaad and Shrek going, "Some
And
of you
some of
may
you
die,
may
but
die.
that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make," and everybody going, "Yeah, this is how liberty
Pick
dies
number
with
three.
thunderous applause."
Pick number three, my
We got
lord.
Joe Biden handing the fucking election over on a silver platter out of pure air. Look, okay, my pros here. I'm just going to run through them really quickly, and then we'll shut this thing down because it's too much for any one person to listen to. I think number one, hopefully people finally wake up and realize that the media is complicit and a major problem.
Totally. complicit.
I've never been more motivated to make this shitty podcast that we do, because purely off of the fact that we all happen to lean a little bit more onto the side of reason, and typically a little bit more left wing politics than those espoused by the
Oh, I mean,
top.
American left wing,
Yes, the top podcast and media, similar media outlets in this country are predominantly Republican, like Republican brain rot, conservative politics. So I'm glad to, however small and poorly
to
put
contribute.
together we might be, we are at least doing something. I think the fall of the DNC and a reconstruction of the Democratic Party is a good thing. I think these people have got to go. Sorry, you had your time and you did absolutely nothing. I won't say absolutely nothing,
I
but
hope you're right.
not
I
enough.
really hope you're right. I don't think it's going to be the end of the DNC. No, I mean, I really don't. I don't think they're going anywhere. In fact, and I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong.
I hope that this ends up with the reshaping of the left into an egalitarian humanist party for the
Yeah,
working class that
yeah.
is in direct opposition to the wealth crisis, the wealth disparity crisis that we have in the United States, and in opposition to the billionaire class who maintain that problem, which is,
Yeah.
in my opinion, the root of many, many, many issues that regular everyday people face. And they just need to be told that. They just need to be given that narrative. They need to say, forget about all of those differences about who's gay, who's black and white, who's got this or that, or who's doing what in the bathrooms, or who's going to what bathroom, or forget about all that shit. That's all trivial bullshit. What you need
All
to
of
be
it.
worried about, like if you're a conservative, I am probably one of the most left people you'll meet. Forget about all the trivial bullshit that separates us. What we have in common is that we are getting fucked over by the billionaire class of people.
They're
And you and
taking the
I,
piss.
yes, you and I share that with the majority of other Americans. And
The
I think we need
super
to
majority
capitalize
of
on that.
Americans.
No pun intended. I think we need to capitalize on that and do something.
I
That's my
mean,
piece.
you know,
We can't accept fascism.
no. And all I'm trying to say in response there, Bray, is I don't know. Like it's so hard for me to agree with you. And it's becoming easier. It's becoming easier to agree with you. Like
What's good to hear.
I mean,
I,
like I'm for real, and this is not just because you and I have met on this more like one-on-one basis or anything like that.
sure.
You know, you know that if I have a substantiated argument, I will make it, and that is that. And
Well,
I will say the quiet part out loud.
sure. And not to
But
drag
like
this out.
it's getting
Go ahead. Go
so
ahead.
hard. It is getting so hard to resist your rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pathetic. I'd like
Like,
I look at my arguments like you disgust me. Like I mean, like I'm looking at my little chess piece arguments. They're all willing and obedient, and I'm like, you disgust me. You can't do anything right. Get out of my face.
well,
I mean,
it's like, and this is the last I'll say on it. And this is basically a reiteration of what I just said. But like we were talking about earlier with the Bernie Sanders video from 2003,
that
the
was
Republican
gorgeous.
Party will package those issues up to create a mirage in front of the real goal, which is to enrich the billionaire class, and they will give you all this bullshit to be distracted by, so you can forget about that and start punching across instead of up. And the problem lies with an inability to recognize that. If you are a conservative person, what matters more to you? The capability to earn a living wage, raising the minimum wage, or whether or not there's a transgender person in the bathroom you don't want them to be in? What
Which one of
matters
these
more
is
to you?
actually more important?
Yeah, not going into medical debt, or immigrants trying to come into the country. What matters more to you, being able to afford a house or, seek a higher education at little to no cost to you, or name some other bullshit talking point
A
here?
hot button issue. I mean,
Yeah, woke mind virus.
look, look. Last thing I'll say is this. Um, I would like to know the cost of the Boston Tea Party adjusted for inflation. You know what I mean? I'm serious. Like while Brey was talking about this, like a bolt of lightning like hit my head and it hurt. I you know I was sat here thinking, the Revolutionary War and the myth that we have about that. Myth being not lie, but story we tell each other,
Mm-hmm.
is that they were anti-monarchism. And I've made the point on this podcast before that they were anti that religion. That a man could be ordained by God to rule you, and you don't get a say. That
Mm-hmm.
was one idea that they were against. They were deists. They were against this religion. Um, why can't I now argue that they were also against that kind of wealth disparity?
Yeah,
I, you know, I mean, for
man
real. And
ordained. Yeah, man ordained
like,
by God and knighted by capital. And now we live in an age where we no longer aspire to that monarchism, but we still worship these people who are now ordained
that,
by capital.
that's what I'm trying to say. Like, this was a fight against that level of disparity among humans, among your cousin creatures, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, you know, uh, the King of England still owns all of the, uh, fauna in the ocean surrounding the British Isles and so on. I mean, I'd say owns because I don't know the exact particulars about like how it works still, but you get my point. I mean, back in the day, they were fighting against this kind of I'm rich and you're poor and there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And why can't we do the same thing?
It's
I'm
worse now than it
serious.
was then. You want to know what
Yeah,
that
it's
value was?
wildly worse now.
Adjusted for inflation, the value of the 342 chests of tea dumped in the Boston Harbor in 1773 is approximately $1.7 million.
Exactly. I mean, it's not close. Like the kind of billionaires we're dealing with have an unfathomable amount of wealth.
Right.
Like if you think you can understand their wealth, you cannot. Like those numbers fall into the category for humans called very big. And this is not me making some bullshit up. I'm talking about what I know about humans, our biology, and our understanding of numbers. And at some point, numbers become very small, and at some other point, they become very big, and their wealth falls in the very big category. You literally
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine it.
Well, I think we'll take that and we'll wrap up this episode and with our usual tagline of, take care of each other. And I think if you, once again, take that and examine it and recognize that it's going to be working class people who end up having to take care of each other. I can't possibly condense all of the issues that we've talked about in the last several weeks into this one uh, closing remark, but the times that are coming are going to be increasingly difficult for regular, ordinary people. Billionaires, people with lots of money, people in comfortable positions, they're going to be just fine. But regular, ordinary people are going to have to start relying on each other, despite political differences, in order to continue to survive. But even the ability to thrive is rapidly diminishing, and it will only get worse. So take care of each other and read
I'll
huge
I'll
long
say
politics.
I'll say one more thing about that from Bray. What I want people to think about, just before they go to bed. Um, you know, we insulate ourselves from nature, but by a lot of mechanisms, and these billionaires are insulated from like that kind of um, kind of salt of the earth thing, salt of the earth idea. Um, you know, like Brey is saying, we have to take care of each other because no one else is going to do it. We are not
Right.
as insulated as they are.
Right.
And you have to think about it that way.
Until next time.